Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Shift Talk Live Episode 2. I'm Josh. I'm here back with Kev the Rev.
What's up?
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Shift Talk Live Episode 2. Hey, and we also have a very special guest.
How's it going?
Here, we have Pastor Tim, or Tim, because it's off hours.
Tim.
Well, relationship expert Tim.
Yes,
That's why we have him.
The founder of the Fuse Singles Conference from a while ago.
Yeah.
It's going to become the Shift Singles Conference at some point.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I can pull off singles conference, man.
What happened to that, by the way? Like, I've had people asking me.
What?
It's we had one, and then COVID happened, and then we added Kev the Rev. So we got to see what happens next.
When is a singles conference? When do you usually host a singles conference?
Usually in the fall, every 2 years. Hey, by the way, I got my Superman Justice League Cup happening today.
Let's go. That's awesome.
FYI.
Nice.
The fall. So, well, I missed it then. We'll have to wait till next year.
It varies. We just look at the calendar and say, hey, what would be a fun time to do it? And then
Valentine's Day for sure.
yeah, we've done that. The first one we ever did was on Valentine's Day.
And it was good.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay, cool.
Did anyone get matched up?
Well, Tim, four people have gotten married from it.
I think. Well, I know definitely. I think 2 people have, but I think about 4 relationships have come out of it. That's not the point of the singles conference, by the way. We don't try to hook people up at the singles conference. If it happens, it happens. We don't.
People.
True.
We don't stop. We don't stop it.
But it's really to talk about the gift of singleness.
That
right.
and living the single life. Maybe if you're waiting to get married or wanting to be single or feeling the gift of singleness. We cover it all.
We covered that.
True.
That came out yesterday, right?
Oh yeah, we did have a podcast that just released yesterday,
Nice.
starring yours truly, Josh and Tim.
Well,
Yeah,
I haven't listened to it yet, but I heard it was very good.
yeah. Some people said they liked it, so
Just some.
yeah, I base it off of the few people that say they like it.
Yeah, I heard it was very good. I haven't listened to it yet, but yeah.
I was there for the recording, and I'm pretty sure it was awesome.
Yeah.
If you knew the amount of time I had to edit, man.
Yeah, there was a lot more.
I know. Hey, all due respect, Kev. All due respect.
Yeah.
That's a lot of editing.
Yeah.
It's a series in itself, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, we are talking about hashtag relationship goals tonight. So this is something that I guess you can see on social media, like hashtag relationship goals. And so
Can you explain that, like when it's used on social media? Like, what are people using it for?
have you never used it, Kevin?
No. No, I got hooked up before the Instagram and stuff. So.
Yeah.
Well, I've never used it myself as well, to be honest. But
Because you've been single your whole life.
Exactly. But when I see it, it's usually like a picture of like a couple doing something sweet, or like a really old couple where the guy is kind of maybe pushing along his really old wife on a wheelchair or something like that.
Yeah, relationship goals that you want to have for your relationship.
Yeah. So it seems
Right?
like it's kind of weird because so the relationship is not the goal. You need to have, there's something more to it. Like there's a specific type of relationship that people want.
Yeah.
Have you guys so no experience with hashtag relationship goals?
So are you asking like who have I aspired to be like? Like who have I looked to as like a relationship goal?
Yeah, that would be cool. Anything. Like is there a particular goal?
From movies, definitely The Notebook. Definitely, because they grow old and he has to. Oh, spoiler alert! If you haven't watched The Notebook, I'm gonna spoil it for you right now.
Okay.
But Oh, you haven't watched it, dude? So
No,
anyway, you
I've
haven't?
seen it. Of course, I've seen it.
Okay, it stars Ryan Gosling and I forget the girl. She's not important.
McGowan, Rose McGowan, was that? No.
No, maybe someone in the chat would know the female lead of The Notebook.
They're gonna hate.
All I know is Ryan Gosling's in it. Anyway, they go through the whole story follows them, and then they grow old. And Rachel McAdams.
Yes.
Thank you, Crystal. Yes.
Crystal.
They grow old and they end up dying on the same deathbed. So, because of their love.
So
Spoiled it.
who has is it? What's the Notebook then?
I'm actually not sure where the Notebook comes in. Why is there a Notebook?
I've seen that movie once, and I saw it when it came out, however many years ago. Let me find out when the movie came out.
Probably 2004.
16 years ago, the year I moved to Hong Kong, that movie came out. I had been married for 5 years at that point.
I actually did a science project based off of the Notebook, and my science project was on the science of love. So that's the value of an HKS education.
Nice. Man, you would have been a young student at that point, right?
2004. No, I was I probably did my project in 2015 or 16 when it was out on DVD.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
So what was the science?
I did it when you were a freshman in high school on the science of love.
What, concocting love potions?
Well, actually, yeah, the chemicals. I was studying the pheromones. Yeah,
Pheromones.
Exactly.
Good call.
So I actually don't know why it's called the Notebook. So anyone in the chat can tell us why.
Crystal,
that'd be helpful.
Crystal, can you tell us why it's called the Notebook? I'm pretty sure there was a notebook that they had, and
there was no notebook. No, I don't remember that. So
it's so hazy. So but are you serious though when you say that Notebook is your hashtag relationship goal?
Yeah, I mean, we all have there must be a love story that you aspired to, right? When you were younger. For you, was it Footloose or something?
Oh gosh. Oh, that's cold-blooded, bro. Let me think. Movies wise, there's one that. Okay, I'll tell you a little story. So the movie Rocky was my hashtag relationship goal.
There was love in there.
Okay, Rocky 1. Okay, so I grew up on the Rocky franchise, right? Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And I saw 3 and 4 first. I didn't see 1 and 2. So 3 and 4 were action movies. They were just, boxing to the max,
Adrian.
Well, years later, after I got married, I watched Rocky 1 and really paid attention to it. And it's really a love story between Rocky and Adrian with a little bit of boxing mixed in. And so, man, I watched that movie and I was bawling, crying, because Cindy was out of town actually in China when I watched it by myself. And I was like, oh, Rocky and Adrian, they're the best. But no, honestly, I would say my hashtag relationship goal would have been my college pastor, my university pastor back in the day. And his name was Bradley and his wife was named Lynn. And when they became when he became our pastor, they had 2 kids. They were 4 and 2 at the time. And Cindy and I would go babysit at their house all the time. We'd babysit the kids and hang out with them. And we just got to see them kind of live life as husband and wife and as parents. And they were awesome. They are awesome. But back then for us as a young couple, we kind of learned a lot from them. They were kind of our mentors. So yeah, being around them in person was awesome.
Dang. You know who I would say, and I'm not trying to suck up, but Brett and Shannon are are really people that I really look up to
Yeah,
in
they're
terms
not
of the
watching.
way.
They're not watching this, Kevin.
I know, but for those of you who are watching, tell them that I said this.
Can you just pull this clip and send it to Brett? Make sure that
Make sure he sees this.
Yeah.
I think I'll always remember seeing how whenever Shannon came into the room, he would like stand up and pull a chair. It was something so simple like that.
Yeah.
That I never even thought about, but that's just like the attention to the detail. And then seeing how they really block out time. I know like there's got to be a lot of pressure for him to be a lead pastor, but for him to block out so much time to do all these dates, to go on these hikes, and you see them post on social media all the time about their dates and stuff. So, and it hasn't just been, I think even when I was younger, like hearing him tell stories about when I was in middle school or high school, like hearing him tell stories about his family and his marriage from the pulpit was really cool to see. So
yeah. They're a great couple. Josh?
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know. I'll let you know. Anyway, we got a few submissions. So we asked our followers on Instagram, what is your idea of a perfect perfect relationship? And we have a few responses, and surprisingly, they are quite similar. So one person said, God-centered, both love God more than each other. And then when both people always put the other first, God is the center, similar life goals and faith level, complementary personalities. I mean, what do you guys think of those? Very Christian answers, I would say.
good answers. Yeah. I mean, those are baseline, I would think. Like you definitely want to have those.
The thing that caught my eye was complementary personalities. What does that mean? So does it mean like if one person's funny, the other person has to be not funny? Or does it mean that they both have to be funny?
This is why you're still single. To me, it means that you click. To me, it means that you have that chemistry. The conversations aren't like laborious. It's not like a struggle. You don't feel like you have to constantly carry on a conversation or something. Like you just click. And for I think different couples they click in different ways. So just having the ability to have that sort of chemistry. I don't know. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one of the common phrases is that opposites attract, and that's not necessarily always true. I mean, maybe they do. Maybe there are some things that each person in the relationship kind of picks up the slack of the other. For example, my wife and I, we complement each other in ways that are kind of opposite, where I might get a little bit worried or stressed out about some things and she's pretty relaxed, or maybe she's more organized and I'm less organized or something like that. But there is a sense that you have to click with each other and that you have to have some commonality and enjoy similar things, have similar goals in life, to want to do things that you're striving to do, and you want to be able to do those things together, stuff like that. I did like the point about, I think somebody said about when God's at the center, when you put God first, like you trust in God first rather than the spouse. And I think that that's true, that you have to be a whole person to get married, that you shouldn't be looking for a relationship to complete you. So one of the hashtag relationship goals of the 90s was the movie Jerry Maguire. And I think we talked about this on the podcast, that the idea of you completing me, of the other person completing the other person is not true. So I think that's a good perspective to have, that when you go into a marriage or a relationship, that you're not looking to be fulfilled by the other person, that you are a complete and whole person already, and that you're finding another complete and whole person, and you complement each other that way.
Yeah. So what would you say, Tim, to the person who has been so desperate for a relationship, and then they suddenly find that they meet this girl and they are basic, like they're getting they're finally feeling like they're this whole person. So for that person, how would you say, how could they go from, needing someone to become a whole person to finding that in God?
So you mean somebody getting into a relationship and being overwhelmed? But
Yeah, they're already in a relationship, but they're finding so much of their meaning in the relationship.
Yeah.
Like they're almost like idolizing the relationship itself.
Yeah. I think with anything in life, and I think definitely relationships are a bigger factor. But like, let's say you get a new job, right? Let's say you get a job as a banker or whatever. You start telling people, I'm a banker. Like, you begin to find your identity in that job. And if you get into a relationship, there is that phase of romantic love that couples get into that is very real, and very extreme, and very powerful, in the sense that you feel this rush of endorphins or whatever it is. Kevin, you know the science behind all this from your research.
Yeah.
But there is a rush, and people call it puppy love or whatever you call it, but people dive into that and they sink into that and they think this is it. I'm in this relationship and this is the best thing that's ever happened to me, right? And I think people get clouded in that a little bit, and they begin to try to find their meaning and purpose in that relationship. They try to find their identity in that relationship. And and one of the things, and again, it's been a while since I've been single or hanging around my friends who were single. Most of my friends are married now, but I do remember the time and the era where when a guy would get a girlfriend, he would just disappear. Like, we would never see him again, right? So all of our guy friends would be missing a guy because he got a girlfriend. And maybe you guys have experienced that too. And ladies, maybe you've experienced that also, that all of a sudden they have given up their identity of who they were to be in this relationship with this girl. And it's kind of sad in a way, right? It's kind of sad to see somebody kind of change overnight because they feel like they're now in this relationship. Now, of course, your spouse or your girlfriend needs to be your priority, but I do think there is a sense that people kind of get lost in that for a little bit. And I think it's really important to be yourself and to find your own identity in Christ, and find a way to kind of merge the two lives together as the two become one.
Yeah, for me, I think the most common Bible story I go to when I talk relationships with people is Abraham sacrificing Isaac on the altar.
That's a great love story. I love that one.
Right. Anyway, but it's always the who's your Isaac? Like, who, if you were to put someone on the altar, not to literally kill, but like, can you do that with your spouse? Can you do that with your girlfriend or boyfriend? And if you can't, then that's sort of like a red flag to where you're at. So, and it's really counterintuitive, the fact that like when we say that you have to like love God and have your focus on God, that seems like that's going to come only through the sacrifice of your relationship, and it's only going to make it worse. But in actuality, in finding your meaning and finding your significance in God, it actually makes all of your other relationships better. It'll make all your dating relationship, your marriage in the future, even your friendships will be more grounded and better when you're not trying to get from these relationships what only God can give you.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah. You actually, I was gonna ask you that, like, what does it mean to love Jesus more than your spouse? And I think that was great. I think you covered it pretty well already. But what about for singles then? What are the relationship goals for singles? Because I think as Christians, the Bible sort of assumes and he urges kind of community regardless of your marital status, and kind of love one another still applies. and iron sharpens iron and all of that stuff. And I think feel like as a single person, you probably have more or more diverse relationships. What do you guys think about that? Like as a single person,
So,
what should
you're
you
breaking up, or is it me?
No, I think Josh is kind of breaking up a little bit. Oh, there he's back.
So is your question, what should our relationship goals be as
yeah,
singles?
yeah, as a single person, because I mean, we still have relationships. Doesn't have to be romantic. I mean, we have a lot of friends, and we probably have a wider range of relationships as well. As a single person, I would say.
Mm.
So, what do you guys think? How would that? What would you say is the relationship goals for a single person?
So, and you're talking about all kinds of relationships, not necessarily dating relationships. I think relationship goals for a single person, or anybody, but I'll just, for singles especially, so you need people who are going to encourage you, and you need people who are going to call you out. You need people who are going to tell you the truth, and you need people who are going to be there when you have a really hard time, who can console you and comfort you. Those kinds of people you want to have in your life. You need mentors. You need people that have gone before you and have seen life more than you have, and can help you not make the same mistakes they made, or help you navigate some areas in life that you need to navigate. But I think all of those things are important, to have people that are kind of pouring into you in some way, that is encouraging, that is building you up and strengthening you, and I'll say this about mentors, and we don't necessarily have a mentor program at the church, and I don't know many churches that do. I know some churches do, but every guy that I've asked to be a mentor has always at first kind of said no. And usually when you ask a man who's older than you, maybe 10, 15, 20 years older than you, or a woman, they get this feeling of like, why me? Why are you asking me to do that? How can I be a mentor? I'm not worthy enough to be a mentor, or something like that. And I always kind of find that interesting, because it's like, I chose you because you look like really good mentor potential, and I think a lot of us have those insecurities of like, I'm not good enough to do something like that. So I really think, but again, 100% of the guys that I've asked to mentor me, or to be kind of a coach or whatever in my life, I said yes after a little bit of prodding. It's flattering to them, but it's also it helps them understand that, they are in that position. So I think that's a good thing to have, a relationship goal, somebody who can help you through maybe some crazy times in your own life, and then to have peers there who you can tell anything to,
Hey, so it's interesting you brought up the mentoring aspect. What does your mentoring, like, a lot of us would say that we want like a mentor, but we have no real idea what that could look like, or what that should look like. But what is your mentoring relationships? What do they look like?
Well, mine have kind of come in waves over the years. It used to be like, when I lived in the States, I used to meet with a guy like 5 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that states have different times. But yeah, I asked this guy in my church, great man, great father, great leader, and we hung out for a while. And then when I moved here, I went through a few different guys, some men, when I was doing youth ministry, especially, that started then. We had a few fathers in our youth ministry that I asked to meet with and talk with them and hang out with them. And the hard part about Hong Kong is that people come and go. And so that's a challenge, because you build that relationship. For me, particularly, it took me a while to kind of be able to open up with some people. It's just my own issues. But I think, and then having somebody, you spend a couple of years or so with somebody and then they leave, it's like, oh, it's tough, So, but yeah, I mean, we have great men on our staff team that I hang out with and talk about mentor type stuff now, who haven't left. So that's been good. but yeah, I think it's hard. It's hard because life moves on and people keep going, and things change and stuff like that. So sometimes you just got to say, you know what, you got to deal with it, and you got to find somebody.
That's great.
And I hate saying, one of the things, I'm going off on a tangent now, but when I became a Christian and started going to church, I wanted people to like hold my hand and tell me, here's what you need to do. And that didn't really happen. And it wasn't realized that I need to take my own initiative and go seek out what I want, that I woke up and started to do that. So I do think that that's important to do that.
Cool. Why don't we look at a few of the questions that were submitted? I think these we'll try to address as many as we can.
And people in the chat, you guys can type questions too.
Feel free to give
I just want to point out this cup one more time, just in case I got this just for this podcast.
Can I say one thing to what you said before we move on to the questions? I would basically just say that, like, I feel like a lot of people our age right now, we have a lot of friendships that are just on cruise control. And what Tim is alluding to is really our spiritual friendships, where you have accountability and you're pushing one another, where you can be vulnerable, you can really work through some of your struggles together, and you can this aspect of iron sharpening iron. I think that is missing from a lot of our friendships, because we base a lot of our friendships on maybe activities or just doing things, and we're not really pushing each other to pursue Christ.
Yeah. And can I say one thing about that? So I'm 41 years old. I'll be 42.
Whoa! No way.
Thank you.
I wasn't gonna say that. I was just gonna say, wow, that's old.
Can you guys see? Okay. I have friends that are my age that we have grown deeper this year than any other year in our lives. And a lot of it is because we all hit an age where things get a little weird. Maybe for some, I don't know. But it took a while. One of my really good friends, he and we met when we were 10 years old, and we would, for our entire lives together, we talked about video games, movies, and sports for years. And we would call each other best friends. And we never really dug into nitty-gritty life until some major stuff started happening in our lives in our 30s. And that totally changed our relationship. Now, we don't talk about deep stuff every single time that we talk, but we know that we have the ability to do that. And I think, we're three guys talking about this, so I think this is more of an encouragement to the men to really kind of cross some boundaries and take those steps to talk about some serious stuff with some of your good friends. For the women, same deal. Like, if you're not able to do that with somebody right now, find somebody that you can. But just stereotypically speaking, generally speaking, women are much more in tune with their emotions than men are.
Never want to make generalizations.
I know.
But
hashtag I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I think that's really true, and I've found that to be true in my life as well. I've only recently started to really like set a schedule to keep in touch with my friends, and really get past like, oh, let's talk football for like 30 hours or something. Like, just like, you have to get past that. And the jump from just like the superficial to the depth is pretty difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
But that's, if you can make that jump, if you can try your hardest to say, like, how, ask a question about how their life is going. That's how you can kind of transition those talks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or you just go straight in, no transition necessary.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, so question time. we got some good ones, and I feel like we're getting to the meat of the discussion. I think these are more towards the relationship side, romantic relationship side of things. So, is it true that God will prepare someone for us, or do we have to look for ourselves?
You've got to look.
Next question. um,
No, that is a good question. I don't want to be dismissive of it.
and that's close to the question of is there a one for me? Like, is there one that's I'm supposed to be with? I don't think that that's necessarily the case. I think you will become the one for the person that you end up with, and you will kind of know when you know, but there won't be, lightning bolts and thunder from the sky that okay, you found this person. Um, you think about the majority of marriages, the vast majority of marriages have come out of people who are in close contact with each other in some way, shape, or form, right? It could be schoolmates or people they work with or people they met in the same city or something like that. So, if God's one for you lives in Canada right now and you live in Hong Kong, it might be hard for you guys to meet. Now, there are some amazing romantic stories where that does happen, but I would say that probably the high probability that the person you're going to be with is somebody that is in your vicinity, possibly in the 852 right now.
Yeah, but I think the heart behind this question is more of where's that balance of kind of trusting that God would provide versus taking things into my own hand.
I think that's maybe two different questions, because I think one is, okay, well, do I just sit around and wait for a person to drop into my lap? You may never meet a person ever if that happens, if you were to do it that way.
Right.
I mean, you may never be in a relationship if you just say, I'm just going to walk around and not do anything, Kevin, I'm not sure exactly who took the first move with you and Emily, but for me, if it was like, if Cindy didn't talk to me in a gymnasium back when we were in high school, yes, we were young when we met, or if I didn't call her to ask her to go on a date, I don't know what would have happened. We had to actually take a step.
Yeah. I feel like I get two ends of the spectrum when I talk with people here, and even when I was dating myself and like in college and having these conversations there. The two ends are this: like one end is just like overly proactive, like overly like I'm just on all these dating apps. I'm constant, like this person is on a date every single day. Because they're taking things into their own hands, and every person they're dating, something isn't right, so they're just going for the next person. So they're super, super active. And then on the other end of the spectrum, it's like what you were describing, Tim. Like we got to wait for lightning to strike the person so that that that's the person for you. Like some heavenly event has to happen for you to know that that person is the one. And so you've got both ends of those spectrums. And I think where like, unfortunately, the Bible doesn't speak to dating all that much, but where we should be is probably in the middle, right in the middle somewhere. Like you said, Josh, very balanced. A term I've heard is pray like it depends on God, work like it depends on you. So just because you are doing things doesn't mean you should not be prayerful about it. And just because you are prayerful about it doesn't mean you shouldn't be doing anything about it. It's not a this or that. It's actually a both and. So in that sense, I would say, yes, be prayerful, be discerning. Think about the type of person that you would want for yourself, and that is going to propel you in your relationship with God. Think about those things, pray about those things. But at the same time, you're going to have to take those steps yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as a Christian, am I allowed to fall in love with a quote unquote basic girl? Which I take it he means like worldly, or I guess a non-Christian. I think that is a very common question. I'm gonna take it as that is what he means by basic.
Wait, say that one more. Read the question one more time.
Basic does not mean that.
No.
But I'm gonna,
Basic means super normal.
yeah, well, I'm going to ask the question as I understand it,
Okay.
and I think it might be a more common question as well. I mean,
Okay.
you cover it in your answers as well. Whether
Okay.
it's basic or whether. So what is this idea? This idea of are Christians allowed to date non-Christians, or what if my boyfriend or girlfriend is a non-Christian? Like any thoughts on that?
So the earlier question about does God have someone for me would say that God has a plan for your life and that you're going to end up with this person. And we can believe that is possibly is true in that regard, that whoever you end up with is who God intended for you, but we may not know that clearly on our end. But I would say where God is involved is when you pursue a relationship. If you're a Christian, you really want that to be a Christian relationship, not that you're a Christian and the other person is something else and you just manage that. The encouragement I have for everyone is that if your faith is important to you, if your faith is important to you enough to ask that question, then you want to be married to someone whose faith is that important also, if that makes sense.
What if
now, go ahead.
Sorry. So they'll say, oh, what if they're really open-minded and they'll come to church with me every Sunday?
I think that's very dangerous. And I would not, it almost seems like you're dating this person on the contingent, like with the expectation that this person will eventually be fixed or like will become Christian. And that's an unfair expectation to place on someone that you're dating. So if you are dating a non-Christian, think really critically, think to yourself, like, is this person so important? If this person never comes to believe in Jesus Christ, are you willing to walk the rest of your life with this person? Like, I think that's something that you really have to consider, because it's not fair for this person to have the pressure of becoming Christian just to be with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, that question comes up a lot, especially here in Hong Kong, because it is a city with 10% Christian people. So you see a lot of relationships that are kind of trying to navigate those waters. But I just think what you're doing is, if you enter into that relationship, is that you're basically cutting out a huge chunk, like the whole center of yourself, and putting it off to the side to date this person. And they may check every other box. You know, they may check every other single box that you have on your list for somebody that you want to be with. But the main thing is that your values and your faith and everything you kind of hinge your life on is put off to the side in that relationship. And it can be frustrating. It can be extremely frustrating, because you want to go to church and this person doesn't want to go to church, or you want to have your child be dedicated and this person doesn't want to do it, or you want to get baptized and they don't want to get baptized. I mean, it could be a constant struggle for your entire life.
When the passion is there at the inception of the relationship, it can be very easy to overlook the centrality of the relationship being founded on God, right? Like, it can be very easy to just ignore the fact that this person's not Christian because you're in love, like you're feeling the chemistry, this is amazing. But when that fades, and it will fade, then you are faced with the real reality that, wow, this person we don't share something that is core to who I am. And something that my wise youth pastor once told me, really wise, he had me stand on a chair and he said, pick me up. And I tried to pick him up. By the way, this guy is Tim. So I tried to pick him up onto my chair, but in trying to pick him up, I was just pulled off the chair. And that was to illustrate the difficulty, not to say that we're putting out rules, but the difficulty of a Christian dating a non-Christian is like being that person trying to pull this person up onto your chair. But really what's more often the case is that you will be pulled off of the chair.
Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah.
missionary dating is not
Missionary
advisable.
dating.
Flirt to
Ministry
convert?
dating.
No.
It's not, I'm not saying not advisable. I'm just saying count the costs, like really think through it. Like a lot of people do missionary dating because they expect to be able to convert the person. That's not it. That might not be possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it may not be possible, and you're kind of starting off with a bit of a handicap in your relationship because you're not really on the same page about very important stuff. You know, one example I use is that my wife could care less about sports. She does not pay attention to any of the sports that I like to watch, and that is not a deal breaker for our relationship. You know, like it doesn't matter if she likes sports or not, but it does matter if she's a Christian or not. And so, you know, when it comes to really, you know, life motivating type of issues, those are the things that we can really relate to. So,
Right.
yeah.
But I will speak from my perspective just to be transparent. Like my relationship with Emily, like we started off being quote unquote unequally yoked. Like I was much further along in my faith. She was like still somewhat of a baby Christian, and I went about that relationship being intentional, not to put the pressure of her having to live up to this standard or to just become this religious person. I didn't place that on her. I was really counting on God to speak into her life, but also community around her. So I wasn't trying to manipulate and you know, oh, you want to come to this? Oh, this is my care group, by the way. Like, you know, let's read the Bible. It was very much like, yeah. So it was, I had to be very intentional. Like here's a practical, when we were talking about spiritual stuff, I would not impose my views onto her right away. Like, no, this is the right way to think about God. It was very much, let's explore this together. Oh, it's okay if you hold to this. Let's explore it and see the ramifications of it. So if you do count the cost and you do want to engage in something where there's maybe an unequal yokeness or non-Christian Christian, you really think about what it means to walk with the person without just like being this person who's like trying to drag this person to become a Christian.
Yeah.
So speaking of this gap, so you talked about the spiritual gap. We have a question on the chat. What do you think when there is a lot of age difference between the guy and the girl? Is that advisable? So how much of a physical gap is advisable? I actually heard that there was a formula for it or something like half the guy's age and then +7 or -7 or something like that. +7.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Half the age +7. So if I'm 30, 15 plus 7, 22-year-old. And then you would do the inverse. You would do the inverse if you're counting up. So you would subtract 7 and double. So if you're 30 right now, subtract 7, 23, double it, 46. But that's just a stupid formula.
I don't know who came up with it.
It seems to work. It seems to work most of the time.
Yeah. So possibly I would be with somebody that's 28 years old, if that was the case. And I can't see that happening. No. Sorry, Leslie, we're just being silly, but answering your question seriously, again, I think a lot of this comes down to counting the cost of that also. So for example, I know people that are in different generations that are married to each other. And, you know, one spouse will make a reference about something that they grew up on and the other person has no clue what they're talking about, and vice versa. And there is a sense of like, okay, when I was in high school, you were in primary school, or when I was in, you know, year 8, you were a baby. You know, there's a few of those things that kind of come up every once in a while with those couples. But the couples that I know that have made it work have kind of just shrugged off those kinds of differences and found connections in ways that are more important. And so it is possible. I think, there are extremes that if you say there's a 20 or 30-year age difference, that could be one that you might have to really think about. But I think I don't want to give a number because that doesn't really make sense. But I do think there are ways to make it work if you really are intentional about it.
Yeah. And there's so many godly relationships in our church where there is a drastic age difference, so it can work. I think it's interesting coming, like, because we're young adults, we're coming from college or we're coming from high school where age did matter. Because if you're a high school student, a freshman dating a junior, or a year 13 dating a year 11 was a huge thing. And then even in college, if a college student dated a high schooler, that was a huge thing. And if a postgraduate student dated a college student, that was really kind of weird. But now we're moving into this young adult phase where we're in this stage of life where we're off on our careers. And so now we're seeing our horizons broaden a lot more than what we're used to. So I say all that to say that I wouldn't, exactly what Tim said, I wouldn't put a number and say, if you are more than this age difference, I will not date you. I would think about it, pray about it, just ask for discernment, see if that is something you're willing to walk down, and counting the costs, like everything that Tim mentioned, but also, like, if you want to have kids in the future, this person will be 50 years old, 55. When your kids graduate from high school, this person will be 70. Like, just counting those, like, just as basic as it is, like, just counting those things.
Yeah, so I got two questions which are sort of related but quite interesting. So the first one is a bit more straightforward. How do you discern God's will in a relationship between two devoted Christians? But then there's this other one. How do you keep individual and relationship goals aligned?
That's a really good question.
When Emily and I were thinking about moving to Hong Kong, I was thinking one way and Emily was thinking another way. And I went to one of my mentors. I was like, what do I do? Like, what I do, it seems like we want different things.
Exercise
and
your
my mentor
authority.
Oh gosh, well, that's why I'm here. So no, I'm just kidding. Legitimately, he said something that was pretty helpful for me. He said, go pray and have her go pray about this thing and come back together and tell each other what the Lord said, or what the Lord, like, illuminated. And if it's not the same thing, then you go back and pray, and she goes back and she prays. And then you come back, you do this, you just continue. You both seek the Lord on this one thing together until you both can come to the same perspective. And I've found that it actually helps. Like, if you are diligent and you actually do this and you stick to it and you both commit to praying, the Lord does change your heart when you pray. So that's something that we did, and I think it's been helpful to try and seek the Lord's will.
And Kevin, you guys were already married at that point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a great thing to do as a married couple, because you can't oppose each other on that. So you do have to really seek God on those types of things. I think if you're not married and you're in a dating relationship and you're dating somebody who has a goal and a vision for their life that is one way, that is opposite to your direction, I think that could be a lot more tricky to manage, unless some major shift happens
Right.
in your life. Yeah. But, like, so if one person wants to go work in finance in Europe and the other person wants to work at an NGO in Indonesia, those two things don't really line up, especially, if both parties are willing to compromise, for example, then that maybe could happen. But you do want to be with somebody in a dating relationship that is kind of on some similar trajectory or a flexible trajectory that you guys can, work together in that way. And I mean, personally, I'm thinking about a couple that I know where the wife was very driven and determined to do one certain thing, and the husband kind of catered to that by getting a job where he could work anywhere. And so his commitment to her was, I love you, I want to marry you, I want to be together, and I'm willing to do this particular thing that will provide you the outlet that you want, where I can support the family no matter where we go. And so that kind of openness to that sort of thing. Or you find somebody who has the exact same, life goal and perspective that you have too. But that's kind of rare. I would say mostly you're going to have somebody you're going to be with somebody on both ends that are going to have to compromise in some small way.
Yeah.
So back to Kevin's example, if Kevin wanted to come to Hong Kong and Emily didn't right off the bat, and then they prayed about it and they came to a conclusion that God was leading them to, there was a sense that one of them had to bend in their original thinking to make that work. And that's a lot of what relationships are all about. So #relationship goals are about serving one another and sacrificing in some ways too.
Yeah. One thing I would add to that is really think about whether your desires or your life vision is something that is like concrete, like whether you have to hold on to it that tightly. Because to be honest, I didn't expect to be here 2 years ago, and Emily didn't see herself doing what she's doing now 5 years. Like, just think, life changes, right? And you're just going where the Lord directs you sometimes. So yeah. Sometimes it's just like when you're 18 or when you're 22 and you have this vision for what you want to do with your life, I would say, okay, that could be something that God has given you to take the next step, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's like exactly where you have to be.
So is it better to have zero vision?
Definitely not have zero.
I had zero.
Well, you could. So again, my wife and I, we got married pretty young, and we didn't have a whole lot of plans, and look where we are now.
Yeah.
16 years in Hong Kong. Yeah. But again, back to that. I mean, we were united on that, and honestly, I mean, she went to China first. She came back. She prayed the whole time while she was in China on a mission trip that God would change my heart. And when she left my hometown to go to China, I said, all right, have fun. When you get back, we're never talking about this again. I didn't say it like that, but I was like, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving my hometown. And then, here we are 20 years later, still living in Hong Kong. So,
yep.
Yeah, I got another good one. What is the difference between being comfortable in a relationship and a stagnation in your relationship? So what's the difference?
Oh my gosh. I don't know how to answer that.
I would kind of compare it to comfortable silence. If you're comfortable in silence with somebody, there's a sense of there's a lot of trust and a lot of relaxation and no worry or no stress. If you're stressed out in a relationship, if you feel like there's stagnation, then there probably is stagnation. You know what I mean? If you're feeling like you're not going anywhere or something like that.
But I guess the question is, sometimes stagnation looks a lot like comfort or vice versa.
Well, I think, that's a really tricky one, because I think to one person, they may feel comfortable and the other person may feel stagnant. So you may be in a situation where, not to throw anybody under the bus here, the guy is comfortable and the girl is feeling like, what are we doing? and it may not be clicking for him. Yeah. Well, he may not be able to see that.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I got my girl, and we go on dates and things are fine, and she's thinking, I want more than this, and so that could be a little dangerous when you feel that one person is stagnant and the other person is comfortable. I mean, yeah, but it's interesting because honestly, not to sound weird, but I don't know if you're ever comfortable in a relationship.
That's true too. Yeah.
And I mean that in the best possible way. Like, I think in any relationship,
Yeah.
working relationship, friendship relationship, and dating and marriage relationship, something's got to be moving.
Yep. You're comfortable because you are moving towards intimacy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like, okay, we can cruise. It's like you're comfortable in that this is getting closer. So you're either getting closer or you're drifting apart in all your relationships. So
right.
The feeling of comfort comes from being actively engaged in trying to become more intimate.
Yeah. I mean, think about your job, for example. If you're comfortable in your job, you're probably stagnant in your job in some ways. If you're not growing or learning or striving or, continuing your education or whatever it is, there's a chance you've plateaued and you're not excited about what it is that you're doing. And I think it's similar in a dating or marriage relationship, that if you've kind of just gotten into a routine, you're not really moving anywhere, And I don't know why this movie just popped in my head. It's totally random, but the movie Date Night with Steve Carell and Tina Fey, basically the whole premise of the movie is that they had gotten into such a rut in their relationship. They went to the same restaurant every date night, every week. They were always exhausted. They had kids. And it was just the monotony of life and the rhythm. And then they go on this one date night, and it turns out some crime had happened, and they get in this big chase, and they're trying to solve some mystery all night long. And it finally brought a little bit of excitement to their relationship, So not saying that I don't know why that came to my head, but I think about that, though, in the way that sometimes if you're in a rut, you need to kind of wake yourself up a little bit.
I think so. Yeah. And I think definitely in dating relationships, like you should be moving, you should be moving forward. And I think this kind of relates to what Leslie was asking in what Leslie asked in the chat, which is what happens when one person has stronger emotions than the other person, when one person's more all in than the other. Like, I think it boils down to how are you communicating about this stuff? Because there's a lot that goes on beneath the surface that you need to talk about. And I think the greatest catalyst the greatest thing that will cause a relationship to stagnate is just the lack of communication about these deeper things. It's sort of like what we said earlier about spiritual friendships, how we feel like certain spiritual friendships are just on cruise control because we just talk about like when I was dating, we weren't always like the best boyfriend and girlfriend, because there were seasons where it was just like we'd go out on a date night and it'd be like, tell me about, okay, so what'd you do today? Okay, well, let me tell you what I did. And there was a stagnation in that. And so we had to like really realize that communication doesn't just mean we're like talking with one another. It really means that we're actually expressing the feelings or what we're going through and moving towards intimacy together.
Yeah.
That's really deep. I'm struggling to find a gag line for any of that, but
probably can't.
Anyway, but I have help from our from one of us on staff in the youth team. I'm not gonna say who, but
Jared.
His question is, which LKF club is the best place to talk to girls?
None right now because they're all shut down, I think. I went to Lang Kwai Fong a few weeks ago during lunchtime because they got some good places to eat.
Sure, that Soho. You should take them to Soho.
Most town, it was crazy. I don't know the answer to that question. I have never talked to a girl in Lang Kwai Fong, so
Sure. Yeah. The answer is don't meet them in Lang Kwai. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, can we answer Leslie's other question here? What are the questions you would ask a guy before starting a relationship?
Well, I don't plan on dating a guy, so I'm not gonna ask any guy any questions.
What questions would you ask the guy before starting a relationship?
What's your name?
What's your name?
So,
how old are you? Would you like to date me?
I think this could be a gender neutral question. I think we could ask this to her. You know, what would you ask a girl before starting a relationship?
How much do you bench?
I think. Great question. Great question. I think I bring this up because I think it's important to talk about your relationship from a bird's eye view and be objective as possible about your relationship, regardless of who's asking who what questions. You know, one of the things we do in premarital counseling is this assessment that the couples take, and part of the assessment are sections on expectations, and we walk through these expectations with these couples that are already engaged. So they've got a wedding date planned and they've paid deposits and all that stuff. So the train has already left the station, so to speak. But I think it's good to have those kind of expectation questions answered in those conversations in a dating relationship, in a dating context. Now, that's not on the first date. You don't go on a first date and say, how many kids do you want to have and who's going to take out the trash whenever we have, whenever we get married. But those things are very important. And what's amazing, so another marriage course that we do is something called Re-engage, which is for married couples, and it really gets into some serious conversations. Mm-hmm. And you would not believe some of these conversations that these couples have not had deep into their marriage. And so I think it's important to have those types of expectation questions answered before you get into a relationship. And kind of what we talked about earlier is that relationships and dating kind of, the early stages, the romantic love clouds your judgment. So, there's a lot of things that you will dismiss, a lot of red flags that won't bother you early in a relationship because you're so in love. And that's the science behind it all. It's
that's right. The pheromones. Yeah. Thank you.
All that stuff. Yeah. Full circle. Totally full circle. But it's good. And that's why we do this report, because this report is a very black and white picture of this couple's relationship. And you can look at it and say, well, this is what you think, and this is what you think, and let's talk about it. So I think that's some good things to think about before you get married or before you get deep into a relationship.
Yeah. Leslie, the only thing I would add is, might there be questions that you ask yourself before you jump into this? And these are questions of a spiritual nature that you can ask yourself and your intentions, and from your observations of whoever this guy is. So, like, does this guy love the Lord? I mean, that's something you could ask them, but that's something that I would really encourage you to ask yourself through observation of how he lives his life and whether he acts, whether he does what he says and stuff like that. So I think there are certain questions that can probe that you can ask yourself. So
cool. So it's almost time. So I guess just to close off, one final question to you, both of you. What is the secret to a successful marriage or a relationship? What is that one piece of advice that you would give
secret. Kevin, I'll let you go first.
To me, you've been married way longer.
What I would say, Ephesians chapter 5 is probably
Yeah.
one of the keys to marriage. Husbands, love our wives. Be submissive to your husbands. And I know a lot of people, that's somewhat controversial in this day and age, but it's basically meaning respect your husbands. That's how husbands feel loved, is by being respected. And husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. And he loved the church so much that he gave himself up for her, meaning he sacrificed his life for her. So there's very much there's a great book on this called Love and Respect. And it's basically the idea that husbands, if you love your wives, wives will respect you. And wives, if you respect your husbands, they will love you. So there's a nice cycle that we see that's a biblical thing too. So honestly, I think that is one of the greatest keys that I think. And I know the opposite of it also, that when my wife and I are in conflict, there's little respect and there's little love, and you get angry and upset and hurt and all that type of stuff. And that spiral can happen too. So I honestly think that loving and respecting each other and mixed with service and sacrifice is honestly one of the best ways you can approach a relationship. And I'll just say one more thing. And First Corinthians chapter 13 is read at almost every wedding. Love is patient, love is kind, et cetera, right? And all of those depictions of love are verbs, that they're all action points. It does not envy, it does not boast, keeps no record of wrongs, all those things. And when we think of love, a lot of times we think of love as a feeling, but the truth is love is action. Love is actually doing something. And so you can't just be in love and exist. You can't just sit there and be comfortable, as we were saying. You have to be moving. You have to be active. So I think those things.
Dang, I can't add anything. Well, maybe no, yeah, I can't. Well, okay.
Do it. You want to.
From a young perspective, the secret ingredient for me has been to take it day by day and to not be so focused on the future, but to give equal, if not more, attention to how I can serve and love my spouse / your girlfriend or boyfriend or love interest the best today. So you take it day by day. That would be my little secret ingredient. Because I say that because I think a lot of us are so future oriented, and will only, we see the finish line before we even run the race. And I really think you run the race by focusing on mile marker 1 and then mile marker 2 and then 3 and then 4 and then 5. So you just take it day by day. Enjoy your dating relationship while you're dating them. Don't just be looking forward to marriage. And enjoy your engagement season while you're engaged. Love them the best you can while you're engaged. So just take it every step of the way.
Yeah, I think just going off of that, and this is just something I read. I'm not speaking from experience, but I think you were talking about kind of loving them day by day, but also kind of, I think it's this idea of seeing your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend as the person that God designed him or her to be, like what he or she can become, that we are encouraging the other person to push towards that in spiritual growth. And I think that also applies to relationships as a single person as well, whether that's in your care group or you talked about accountability and mentorship as well. So I think seeing that potential and where we're heading towards, and then kind of spurring each other on towards that. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So we have night shift at the end of this month. Is that it?
Night what?
Night shift.
Night shift.
That F is really hard to say, huh?
Yeah, I was wondering why you were so shocked. I was thinking, is it a surprise? No, it's on the website already.
Did the camera like cut it out? Like, I don't know. Yeah, night shift October 30th. It'll be a lot of fun. It'll be in person too. So
Hopefully,
that'll
fingers
be
crossed.
awesome.
Yeah.
And for you special lot, because you guys are watching our Shift Talk live, we're gonna have we'll announce this in November, but we're gonna have a Christmas junk boat trip out in the
Well,
cold.
we
Those
shall
are
see.
fun. Hey, those are
But where do you meet people? Christmas junk party. That's
fun.
right.
Hey, once you're on those boats, you can't get off.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what's the best place to meet like a girl? Not Lang Kwai Fong. It's the Christmas junk party.
Yes. Yes, you're not allowed off until you find someone.
Yep, exactly.
Tim, anything?
Hey, I just want to say who has been watching with us. You guys have been pretty consistent this whole video, so thanks for
Yeah, guys.
Yeah. Anything you want to plug? Any shout outs, Tim?
Shout out to
Your mom and dad.
my mom. Hi, Mom. And my kids, they're all having their birthdays. My son just turned 10. My oldest daughter just turned 15. My middle daughter is turning 13. Christmas is coming. It's fall. Shout out.
Seems like you could use a Christmas junk
Hey,
yourself.
I would love to go on a Christmas junk.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's junk caroling instead of
Trying to
bus
look like
caroling.
me?
I tell you, no, I got my these bags under my eyes. Like I'm trying to pull up
You
my
mean these bags? I have bags too, man.
dude. I'll tell you one thing 2020 has shown me. I keep looking at myself in these Zoom calls, and I have aged. I used to not look like this.
You know, Zoom
You are
has
41.
Zoom has a touch up function, like touch up my appearance.
Oh, does
you can select
Oh.
that.
Work on that. That's a hashtag relationship goal right there.
Yeah.
Is that in the video settings?
Yeah.
Oh, my appearance. There it is. Let's see. I just turned it on. It's not doing anything.
Oh, it took 10 years off.
I don't know. It's not doing anything for me.
You're just too old. So
I know. It's taking a little bit of these wrinkles off anyway.
all right. So I guess we'll see you. No
That's it
more
from
questions,
us.
right?
Yeah.
Have fun dating, guys.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Yeah. Thanks for
it was
coming
fun.
on. And we'll see you
Yeah.
guys next time, hopefully. Take care, guys. Good night.